Alright, y'all, so what I'm doing in this stream is basically I have a little simple online checkers game where you can go and you can create a game. And then as you create the game, it's basically connecting to a backend, and the backend is using WebSockets to kind of create a game. And this game is just waiting for an opponent. So if I go to another tab, we now see that that game showed up here down below. So if I click on join game as this second tab user, then my other tab will basically get set up, and I have some test data going right now, so I could just test jumping. But basically, you can see that I have over here you are the player black, and it says waiting for opponent. And over here it says your piece color is red. It's your turn. So if I click and jump over that piece, the game ends. It says red has won, and the game gets pretty much cleared out. So it's a really basic game. A lot of stuff could probably be done to refactor it, but let us go and let's see. I'll go over here. What does pop out chat do? So I'm new to streaming, so I want to like check out the new features or whatever features are available. So this is, I guess I could use this to kind of chat with you all. So let's just go, and what I'm trying to do is I just want to refactor the backend code a little bit. There's a lot I could probably do this, like change this up, but on the backend, on the server, pretty much every time a WebSocket event comes in from the client, we have a function that gets called. Now I would like to move all these functions out into separate files so it's a little bit easier to manage. Because right now there's about like 5 different callback functions, and it's a little bit messy. So what I'm going to do here is I want to just make a new folder called handlers, and I will say on connection.js, and basically I'm going to do the same pattern for all of these. I'm just going to pull these out into, sorry, not on connection, I'll say on disconnect or something. So on disconnect will be a function which basically just calls this. So I could say module.exports equals that function there. And we don't have an InGame and we don't have a SinGames, so we're gonna have to figure that out. But basically what I'm trying to do is just import that, so on disconnect, and require that from the handlers folder and on disconnect, okay? And then I'm just gonna call that here, and we are gonna figure out what we need to refactor to get that working. So obviously we need an InGame function and we need a SinGames function. So InGame is defined somewhere. Actually, it's defined in Game Manager. So I have another file called Game Manager, which basically has a bunch of helper function that encapsulates like the game logic. So I could basically just import that up here and delete that. Okay, so SinGames, I believe, is my own little function that's inside the server file that basically just grabs the games from the game manager and then sends them to the players that are connected to the checkers game. Okay, so SinGames takes in a socket. In fact, I don't have the player, so I actually might need to make this a callback function and pass in the socket. So I'm going to say socket here. So this will take an argument called socket, and then SinGames is basically just going to call this. Okay, so it just emits games, get games. Get games is something that's actually defined in Game Manager, so I need to import that. And this seems kind of silly just to have a function that does this. So I wonder if like I do it elsewhere. I do it a lot of different places, so I might need to actually like send that out or export that somehow so I can use it elsewhere. I need to remember to check chat in case anyone's watching. How's it going, Arun? See if I can check. Got 2 viewers. All right. All right, so what am I doing? I'm just refactoring code. All right, so SinGames takes in IO as well. So we don't have IO inside of this function scope, so I probably need to import that. And kind of what I like to do is I need to I like to pass in objects as my function parameters. So where were we calling the handler again? All right, down here, so I could pass in the socket and the IO. All right. So let's just test this out and see if we broke anything. We probably did. Let me load up my console down here as well, or my terminal, and make sure that my server is running. And it looks like it's crashing. It's saying cannot find Game Manager. Okay, so if I go up here, it's complaining about this, and that's because Game Manager is a level up, so I need to actually import that correctly and restart my server. So now at this point, I should be able to refresh my page. Should be able to make a game. I should be able to join that game. And what the onDisconnect function does is basically when a opponent or player leaves the game, the other tab is going to say the game is ended. It's going to say null has won the game. That's a bug. We can fix that later. But then it redirects you back to the lobby. Okay, so the little refactoring we did here, I think it makes it a little bit cleaner. I don't know, but let's just continue on. So another handler would be the MovePiece. So MovePiece, and I could just export a function here that's probably going to take in those same two arguments. All right, so MovePiece is going to be a function that looks like this. And so one thing I'm noticing is like we typically need IO and we need socket for all these handlers. So these should probably be factory functions. So a factory function is a function that returns a function basically, or returns an object, I guess. But what I could do is have this export a function that then exports, returns another function here. So let's go back to the server and we're going to do onDisconnectFactory. And that is going to basically, I don't need to call it with that anymore. So let's just try this. It's complaining about something. All right. I'm just going to rename this to factory just so that I can tell by the name of the file what this is exporting. All right, MovePieceFactory. And that is going to be a factory function that does basically very similar pattern or the same pattern. It just takes an IO and socket, and then that returns a function that is going to be calling the logic for like moving a piece. So I do need to change some imports. So onDisconnectFactory. Let me rename that so it's consistent. And that's being called already. Okay, so this one, let me make sure I didn't break anything. I'm sure it's working fine. Okay, so what I wanted to do is I'm trying to work on the MovePieceFactory, and that is going to return a function that needs a MovePiece call. So what I could do is import that because that comes from Game Manager. So Game Manager, I'm sorry, that needs to be MovePiece because that is the named export that comes from Game Manager. And looks like we also use isGameOver. I should probably add a linter to this project. Like nothing is being highlighted. InGame. And again, we have SinGame is being called. So at this point, it might make sense to make a helpers and just move that into like a helpers file. So SinGames is a full, or so I have a SinGames file, and that's going to module that exports. It's going to export this function, which I forgot to copy. So let me export that. And then I can import this. So const SinGames, and then import that from handlers, or I'm sorry, from helpers slash SinGames. All right, so that should hopefully put us in a better position to use that everywhere else. So I'm going to copy this. I guess we don't need to get games. You know what? I did need to get games is called here, so I need to make sure I import that from my game manager. Don't need it there. And what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm trying to just make sure I have SinGames called. Okay, so we got InGame, we got SinGame, we got IsPiece over, and we got MovePiece. So I think everything is set up here. We got IO, we got socket. Let us double check everything works. So I'll make a game called testing. I'll join that game and I'll go to my red opponent and jump. And the game ends and it gets deleted from the list because the game is over. Okay, so that works. That refactoring was cool. What else can we do? Just keep moving down the list. Oh, I didn't even use it yet. So we refactored the move piece to be a factory function, but we didn't actually like use it. So I'm going to add a MovePieceFactory variable up here, and that's going to import the MovePieceFactory. And what we can do is on this socket on call, we could just call it with IO and socket, and that will return us the function we want. So all this stuff can go away, hopefully. Save it and let us test out what's going on. All right, everything looks like it's still working as it did before. One thing that's kind of annoying me is that the server, or the game, I commented out the actual, like, the real checkers state, and I put it with like a fake state so I can kind of test out. So let me just save that. And now when someone makes a game and someone else joins it, we got the actual checkers game here. All right. So let's just keep going down that list. It's always good to do refactoring of your code. All right, so helpers, handlers, leave game factory. It's a function that calls a function. I'm sorry, a function that returns a function. That is going to call this. And we're going to need IO and we're going to need socket again. Oops. All right, let's just, I wonder if my auto import will work. Probably won't because I'm not using name exports. So let me just go ahead and copy that good stuff and see what I need. I need SinGame and I need InGame. So these two are irrelevant. I can delete them. I can go back to my server. I can import that factory function. Leave game factory. And then down here, let us just call it with socket in IO. Make sure that's still working. It's kind of tedious testing this refactoring out, but it needs to be done. So let us join a game and then leave the game. It says game has ended, and then it shoots the players back to the lobby. So that's working fine, except for it does have null printed out in the alert, which is a bug. Which maybe we can fix that. I will fix it later. All right, so create game and join game are the last two events that we kind of need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just say join game factory. Need to make sure I call this IO and socket. All right. Join game factory, pass it IO and socket so that it can do what it needs to do. And of course, I need to import it here, so I can say join game factory. Complaining about the parenthesis. Oh no, I did the wrong one. I did create game. All right, so join game. All right, let me just rename this one to create game. All right, create game factory. This one calls create game factory. Now to get this one to work, we need send games and we need create game. So let's just copy these import statements, and I could just make sure I pull in create game here. All right, so that should work, hopefully. All right, last one is join game. So let's just go ahead and let's speed this up. I'm gonna just copy and paste the file and then refactor as needed. So join game factory, and that is going to call this code here. And that needs join game from the game manager. Join game factory. Again, takes IO and socket. All right, so all these should now be refactored out. Oh, join game is actually not. Hold on, let me pull this join game out, and I'm gonna put it inside the join game factory. And we actually don't need to import it here, but we do need to import get game by game ID, and also that. In fact, I don't know why there is a join game. Let's see. Does join game get called anywhere else? I don't think so. So this isn't really called anywhere else, so there's really no need to like have this as a separate function. I could just replace that code logic there and delete this. Add player to game, send games. All right. Let us see what we broke. So it looks like get games is still being... Okay, we don't use send games here anymore, so we don't need get games. Send games is not defined. So when they connect, we send the games to them. Okay, so yeah, we just want to make sure we import this. So send games is a function that is required from the helpers. And then we can call it with socket, and then everything should work as it did before. All right, so the game is still working as it did before. I can jump over pieces. And give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, so we did some refactoring in the backend, and I think this is a more manageable file now. Everything is kind of split up into different files, so it's easier to like navigate. I always like to keep my functions small, so this used to be like 100 lines of code, and now it's only 33. So I think that's a win. All right, so what are we trying to do now? One thing that we could try doing is building like an internal chat room, maybe. So when you join a game, you could probably have like some chat room on the side where players can talk to each other. So what I'm going to do is basically, let's see, what am I going to do? All right, so we probably could start the front end, or the back end, and we could have a socket on listener that basically checks for messages. So I'm going to say on message, and then I will say, actually I'm going to call it chat message. So I can say ChatMessageFactory here. And then when someone sends a message from the client, we could just put that onto the game itself. So let me import this real quick. That we haven't made it yet, but we're going to. So I'll just put that code there, and then we can go into handlers and make a ChatMessageFactory. And again, it's just a export factory function that returns a function. And what we can do here is we basically need to grab the game manager and probably make a new function called like add chat message or something. So I'm going to export another function down here, and this whole file can probably be refactored too. So I'm going to add chat message as a function, and that's going to take in a message, and basically all that's going to do, you know, it might need a game ID. All right, so I'll have it take in the player and a message. Okay, so I do have a helper function already here that says get game for player, and player just happens to be the socket. So you basically pass this function the socket and it returns you the game. But we can assume that there is a messages, so game.messages. I'll just say game.chat.push message. Okay, so let's just push the message onto the bottom. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, but on the actual game itself, we don't have chat here. So let me add a chat as an empty array. And then whenever a game is created, we can just kind of put in a new chat message there. So ChatMessageFactory is probably going to need to take in a message. And that needs to call a add chat message. Pass in the player. Pass in the message. I think that's what I called it. I don't remember at this point. Yeah, it's called message. And then of course we are going to have to import that. So let's just do a named import. And that is going to be from our, where's that from? Game manager. Okay. We don't need IO. So now the client has the ability to send in chat messages. So on chat message, ChatMessageFactory, and the ChatMessageFactory should probably send the games. So this is like a really, I'm going to refactor this at some point. Instead of sending the entire games to every single client, we should probably just send like the updated chat message to the client who are in the game, but we're just doing what works and then we can refactor later. So I think that should work. Now if we, on the front end, oh hey y'all, sorry I just checked my chat now. So I got Condor and Quabi. So welcome to the stream. Yeah, so I don't really have a plan of what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like refactoring stuff and adding stuff. I do plan to make an entire tutorial on making this, but I wanted to first build it out and make sure that the code is clean, because I did get someone complain that like in the tutorials it'd be nice if the code was already like clean before they watch me refactor it and stuff. I don't know. Let me know. I think watching someone refactor code is great in terms of learning, because I know when I first started, like it just gets so confusing to know like where should stuff live, like where should your functions be, when do you split them up, when do you put them into different modules, and watching someone refactor code I think helps. And code's dynamic, right? It always changes, so you could always refactor. You could spend a lot of time just refactoring code. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. What was I doing? Okay, so on the front end, we want the ability for the person to send in a chat message, right? So if I go to my game JSX, this JSX component is basically what displays this down here, which happens to be, I guess, broken at this point. Let's see what's going on here. It says, cannot find module handler ChatMessageFactory. Well, it's right here. Okay, so the issue is I forgot the S here. So this is handler, and I actually named my folder handlers. So if I go back to my server and look for ChatMessageFactory on the imports, I just need to make sure I add an S there. Thanks, babe. This is my wife right here, Tina Seibert. She's my #1 fan. Let me give her a little heart. All right, so on the client, okay, what was I doing? So make sure I can join the game now. Okay, so this works. So again, the game.jsx, that is this component that you're seeing down here. It basically shows like a little title of the game, some other stuff that should probably fix with styling, and then your checkers board. Okay, so I want to make this be on the left, and then on the right we could have like our chat room option here. So let us go into this component, and I'll move this down so you have more real estate to see what I'm actually doing. And I'm using React Bootstrap. Like there's a framework, I guess you could call it a library, I mean, which basically just makes a bunch of different React components using the Bootstrap library. And you'll see these container, row, and column components that I'm using over here. And that is basically a way to like define different CSS, not CSS, but different like grid columns. Okay, so all I need to do here is just basically put 2 columns. Let me make, did I delete the one down here? I did. So the cool thing about this, if you just have 2 column components, then it's going to split them in half. So if I go back to the page and look at it, the left will be my chat room and the right will be the checkers. But in fact, I want it to be the opposite. So let me go down here. Okay. So let's move on. So if you remember, when we send a chat message from the client to the server, it just basically appends a string to an array that's on the game object. And for those of you who are joining, like the game object is passed in, and that is basically that data structure that we saw on the back end. Let me go to game manager. This is some ugly code, but here. So on the game object, we have name, turn, players, and chat. So chat is what we're interested in. And in our game JSX component, we could, let's just call a function that says render chat, I guess. Sometimes I like doing this, sometimes I don't. It kind of makes it confusing if you have to keep jumping around from function to function. So I'll just make a function called render chat, and that's just going to return a div right now that says chat room. I don't know. Game chat. How about that? All right, so I'll create a game, click it. We got game chat over here. It's a little big, so I might want to do like an H2 to match what we have over here. And on the game chat, all we want to do is basically just do a map over the chat array and display all the chat messages, okay? And we also want an input box at the bottom. So I'll say input, I guess I could say placeholder. Enter your chat here. So that would put a input box with a placeholder in the screen. And then we also need a submit button. So the bootstrap thing gives us a button component, which I think I can auto import. Yeah, I guess that one. And I can say variant is equal to primary. And I'm going to say send. So it's complaining that I imported something wrong. So in fact, what I need to do is not do a named import. Okay, so sometimes you can't trust auto import. VS Code's only so smart. So let's make a game and see if we got an input box. We do, and we got a chat over here. All right. So the input box isn't styled. So if I go back to my React Bootstrap library, one second, I'm gonna turn my fan on. All right, so on this library, if you go to components down here, and I think you can go to form, they will give you an example of how to style. What happened? Why did I go to drop downs? All right, so I think this is called a form control. Okay, so if I just copy this and go to render chat and just put that here. Let us see if this works. And again, we're just trying to see if it'll style it. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to import it. So yeah, make sure you import the component. Make a new game. We got the chat. So this looks a little bit better. The send button, I would probably like it to be up here, but I don't want to spend too much time trying to figure out how to do styling. You know what? I could probably do great. You know, I'm getting off tangent. So let's pretend we have a bunch of chats, right? So the first thing we want to do is when someone types into this input box, we want to keep track of what the internal state is of this input box. So one thing you could do is attach a onChange listener here, and that is going to pass you an event. I usually just call it E. And then we want to set that value into state. So I don't have state stored on this game object yet, but I could use the hook to create one. So I'm going to say chat text and set chat text. Those will be my two state related variables, and we are going to basically call set chat text down here, wherever that was. Here it is. This file's getting a little out of hand too. e.target.value. So whenever I type into this input box, I basically just change my internal state to that value. And then the value here I could have set to chat text. So let us go here, type some stuff here. That's working. And now when I hit send, what I want to do is send off that WebSocket event. So on the button, we could say on click, and then we could call a function called SinChat, and then pass that chat text. We don't actually have SinChat defined yet. What I've been doing is I pass it in as a props, and those functions are defined in the parent component. So SinChat is defined in app.js here. And what we want to do is figure out where we're calling game, which is here, and basically just pass in a prop called SinChat. We don't actually have this defined yet, so we need to define it. So I'm going to make a new function here called SinChat. That can take in a message, and then I'm just going to emit a socket.emit chat message, I believe it was called, pass message. Let me double check. So we had it called chat message. All right. Why is this grayed out? All right, I think this should be okay. Now the last step is, I mean, if you want to test this is working, let me check my chat. Let's see. Bobby, I'm currently building a chat app with Firebase, but the data usage pricing makes me worry. For a chat app, Does WebSockets require the usage of a database as well? I mean, does WebSockets? No, you don't need a database for WebSockets, but if your chat app, you plan on storing the text messages so that if someone comes by the next day, they can see the previous history, then yeah, you definitely need a database. But if you want something that like I'm building, like when you close out of this tab, all of your chat messages are deleted, then you don't need a database for that. But yeah, I don't really know much about Firebase. I'm assuming you like connect your front end to a Firebase endpoint and it automatically updates whenever someone pushes chat messages to it. All right, what am I doing? So I created a game. All right, so I just wanted to kind of show that this is hopefully working. And you know what the best way to probably do that? I could do it here. I'll click send and the server crashed. So it's obviously not working. IO is not defined. Let's see, ChatMessageFactory. SinGame's IO is not defined. So I need to make sure IO is passed in here. You know what, I thought that was grayed out before in my editor, so I deleted it, but I guess it was used. All right, let's see what happens here. So I click send, and we sent, you see that little up arrow? That means we sent it to the server, and the data is chat message is the event name, and then hello. So our backend did get that, hopefully, and it probably stored it somewhere in our game. And then we got back an event, which this is not performant, so I need to refactor this. But basically, it has a list of all the games, and each game has an array of chat messages. So every time someone's chatting in a game, it basically is sending that message to everyone connected to your server. So I never said I'm going to build something performant. I'm just building something. But yeah, one thing you notice is that it probably should have cleared this when I actually click that send button. So we can go back here and find out where we're calling SinChat. All right, so here. This probably also isn't the best. I would probably make a function here, but since this is kind of small, I'm just going to say set chat text to that. So basically, after we send the message with the socket event, I'm just going to clear the input box. And the second thing I want to do is we want to see that message show up. So where can we do that? So inside the game, we have a render chat message, I believe. And we could, below the title and above the form, we could just render out some divs. Okay, so I'm going to say game.chat.map message, and that is going to be a function that returns another div that has message in it. Did I do this right? Why is it complaining? I'm telling you, sometimes my editor says something's wrong and it takes like it's 30 seconds to actually correct itself. So I think it's because I'm streaming. My OBS is probably using resources. VS Code's using resources. My server, WebSockets, all these. So let me go back to this. Okay. All right, make a game, and boom, it crashed. Cannot read property map of undefined. So that's typically because my chat is probably not defined yet. And you'll see that sometimes in React when, like, if you define an initial state, it's useful to define your initial state as an empty array. So I need to figure out actually, I think I can go here and check as well. Nope, it just crashed hardcore. Alright, so let me go to my game, render chat, go down here, and then I want to figure out why chat is not defined. Why would it not be defined, huh? Let me go to my game manager, that's on the server. And I do have a chat defined as an empty array. So, I mean, when you join a game or create a game, you should be getting an object back that has an empty array on it. Let me just do a hard refresh on my server. And then also a hard refresh on my client. Nope, it just crashes. Alright, I think there's somewhere else I'm defining chat. So inside of here, we are passing in game. And we are only passing it in if it's defined, so... set game is being called. Okay, so yeah, this is... it's useful if you just define an empty state here. So my initial state for game, I want board and chat to be empty arrays so I don't get errors like that. I don't know if that's the best solution or the best fix for those type of errors, but I mean, it typically works. Hold on, let me save, do a hard refresh, go here, create a game. What is it still complaining about? Well, let's just do a quick hack fix for now. I'm just going to make sure that chat is defined, and then I'll map it out if it is. But I need to come back and figure out why that's not actually being set properly. So this will work. Click send, the messages show up. And if I join, man, I click send here, player B, and then player A, it shows up on my screen. So it'd be nice if I could see like the player who typed it maybe? I don't know. I don't know. What is this? Oh, key. It's complaining about keys here too, so I need to make sure I bind it to something. And I'm just going to bind it to index. IDX, key, IDX, save that. This seems so ugly. I don't know why chat's not defined. Maybe someone knows. Nope, okay. Alright, so I think it also makes sense to not show this. Like, unless the game has started, there's no point to having a chat room because you can't talk to anyone but yourself. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide that stuff. So render chat is not going to show unless we have 2 players. And I think I'm going to clean this code up a little bit. So instead of just checking if there's 2 players, I mean, there should never be more than 2 players. I'm going to say is game started. Okay, and that's going to be a function that just returns if there's 2 players or not. Make sure you return. In fact, I could probably just do this. Alright, so instead of doing all this, I'm going to say if not, game is not started, and if game is started, show some stuff. Same thing here. We only want to show that if the game is started. And that just makes it a little bit easier to actually read your component, because now you're not checking like, okay, what does number of players triple equals 2 mean? It's just, is the game started? Yes, then render the chat. So let's go back, make a game. The chat is gone. If I join the game, the chat shows up. Okay, I would really like to get this to be fixed over here. Give me 1 second. I'm back. Alright, so is anyone in this chat room? Brenda Johnson. Alright, so I mean, what do you all think I should do next? I really kind of want to make this button be over here. And I'm wondering if there's a way to do that with Bootstrap React. Or if I need to write my own CSS to like float it to the right or something. Uh-oh, nope. Just hoping they have an example of like a submit button. I don't think so. Well, if anyone else has free time and they want to look through and see if there's an example, but I'm just going to hack at it and try to get it to float to the right. So with my Chrome debugger, let us look at the send button and see what we could potentially do to it to get it to go a line over here. I could probably do... And this is kind of hacky. I could put it above and say float right. Oh, wait. I could do some positioning and then say right of 0 pixels. Hey, we did it. I don't know if we need float on that, do we? That looks good enough for me. Does it look good enough for all of you? So inside render chat, we had the button. And I'm going to call this button class name of chat button. Now, what I could do is in my game CSS, which is imported in my game JSX, I'm just going to render that chat button here and paste in those CSS properties. So refresh the page. Oh, I got to join. Yikes, that's messed up. I think it's because I had it before. So sometimes with DOM elements, like if you put the button before the input, it makes it line up correctly. Or what I could do is just wrap both of those in a div, give the div a relative positioning, which is probably the correct way to do it. So let me just go here. I need to wrap the input in the button in a div and give that a chat input wrapper, maybe. Go down here, save that, go to my CSS, make a chat input wrapper, and I can say position is relative. This is a little trick, like the parent element has a relative positioning, then you can do like absolute positioning on the children to get it to be at a certain place. So now let's test my theory. Oh, did the app just break? Let's see. No. All right, we're gonna figure this out. Position relative. Yeah, where did my styles go for my chat button? Did I like delete them? Chat button should have a position of absolute. Oh, it's down here, but it's getting overwritten. Okay. What is overwriting that? Oh, wait a second. I forgot top. My bad. I need to say top is 0 pixels. That'll get it. Okay. Sometimes you forget about these little things. There's like 100 ways to do stuff. That's the one thing I hate about web development is like to just do something simple like positions to the right. There's probably like a ton of different ways. And I just do the first one that works because why not? But you could use like floating, absolute positioning is probably the better solution. All right, what am I doing? I think I like to refactor this. So it's kind of hard to know when it's your turn. And I'm not sure what the best way to know if it's your turn yet. Maybe just say it's your turn, make this more bold. And I'm trying to think, like, what can I do to make this more apparent? This ASDF stuff, like, I don't think that's really important to be, like, really the name of the game's not that important. My awesome game, I'm a noob. I guess it's kind of important. Yeah, my expertise is in styling, so I'd kind of have to think and figure out like what a better way to design this or style this would be. Like, is it better to have your color, your piece color is black? Like, this is probably too verbose. So I could probably just say like you are, I don't know, waiting for opponent. All right, so what else can I work on? I really don't want to do styling, so maybe there's more code cleanup I can do. I did kind of want to see if there's a modal. So like one thing that, let's see if anyone's watching. We got 3 viewers, 2 viewers. So one thing I wanted to do is when you win the game or when someone leaves the game, I think you might have seen that. It just says the game has ended, and I'm using an HTML alert, which is not pretty. But what I wanted to do instead is see if maybe there's like a modal I can use on the Bootstrap. React to Bootstrap. All right, so they have some examples of modals. I guess I could use alerts too. I think a modal would be nicer. All right, so how do we do a modal when someone ends the game? So let's just grab this stuff. Why not? Why don't we? So basically, the modal, you can hide and show it. Let's see, they have a handle close, handle show, on hide and show. So you could do something like this. And inside of my app, what I'm going to do is basically just put a modal somewhere on this page. I don't think it really matters where it is. I like to just put it at the bottom. And I can make a state variable called show modal and handle close modal. All right, so in order to get this working, I'm going to need another state variable. So in here, I'm going to say show modal, set show modal, and use state of false. So make sure that modal is not showing by default. And then down here, we could probably just call set show modal false. Let me delete that. All right. We got too many parentheses. What's going on here? Looks like it. So let's first just check to make sure this works. You know, wait, was there more stuff in that modal that we don't want? Handle close, handle close. So we only want one button, and it should probably be a primary button, because this is not really like a real modal. It's more of like a confirmation to say, hey, like you've won, or hey, your opponent is left. And now I guess it makes sense as to why, because we have two functions that basically are going to be calling the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out to a function here called handle close modal. And that is a function that's going to call set show modal of false. And now if I go to the bottom, I could just call that. All right, so what am I trying to do? I want the modal to just show when the page loads. So I'm just going to go ahead and hard code this to true, just so I can debug and make sure it's working. It's complaining, saying modal is not defined, so I need to make sure I import it from React Bootstrap. Button is not defined, so same deal, it's complaining about button. All right, so the modal shows and I can close it, refresh the page. I can close it. All right, so what I want to do is say, I could probably have some dynamic modal text here. So I could say like modal text, because I'm going to be using the same modal for various different scenarios. So let us just go ahead and say ModalTitle as well. Okay, so we need two states for this. Set ModalTitle equals use state of empty string, and then modal text. Set modal text is also an empty string. And now when someone leaves, so I think there's a function called like InGame maybe. Set game lobby. Let's see, on disconnect. So instead of doing this alert here, let us just say set show modal of true, set modal text of your opponent has left the game. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing the wrong one. This is like if the server crashes. So let us find one where I have the other alert. Servers crashed, the game is ended. Here, let's do this one. Your opponent has left the game, and then show modal title game over. All right, so instead of showing an alert there, we should show the modal. Show modal title is not defined. Why is that not defined? Oh, because it's called set modal title. Hold on, let's see. All right, and so we are defaulting it to true, so we definitely want to get rid of that and set it to false, so that the modal doesn't show when the app first loads. So let's make a game. Let's join the game, and let's have one of these tabs go back to the lobby. And that alert is coming from, okay, your opponent's left the game. So this is saying null has won the game. There's like some logic I need to fix up with the server where it sends multiple events. So game over, your opponent has left. So we do show a modal, that's great, but we also show the other alert. So if you go here, we do show an alert when someone wins. So in fact, when someone leaves the game, I don't want to send out this winner message. So what I'm trying to do is fix a bug. The bug is basically when someone leaves the game, it is pretty much saying that someone has won, which is cool, but I mean, really I just want to end the game. So I'm kind of calling an in-game function here that emits a winner here. And let's just make this conditional. So I'm only going to print that out if winner is defined. So I could just say if winner and then run that code. So I think that'll fix our code. I don't know if that's the best solution, but it should work. So let's try it again. Let's create a game. Let's go here, join the game, go back to the lobby. That's kind of a bug too. But the other tab, we get your opponent's left the game, and then that's good. If you're on the lobby and you left the game, I don't think you should show a modal. I mean, maybe you should ask like a confirmation, like, are you sure you want to leave the game? But let's see. So how do we do that? On the app, we're going to be getting back the in-game. Let's see. Leave game. In-game. So I guess technically we don't need to emit in-game to the player who just left the game. You know what I'm saying? Like the client knows that, hey, like I'm trying to leave the game by going back to the lobby. So we don't need to show a modal. So one thing you could probably do here is only show or only emit this in-game if the player is not equal to, let me rename this. Let's see if this works. All right, let's go back here, make another game. So if I am on tab 2 and I click lobby, dang, it's still giving me this. I wonder why that is. The player is not equal to the current player. But player is actually a socket. And this needs to say socket. I think that is what I'm going to do. This is kind of confusing. All my code's confusing. And code typically is confusing until you take time to go back and refactor it. So I don't think anyone is able to write perfect code unless they're like super awesome. At least the first time, right? It takes multiple iterations. It's like writing a book, right? Your first draft is your rough draft, and you come back, you have revisions. And it might take you 10 or 20 revisions until you get that final copy. And that is exactly what it's like when you're coding. You have to come back, refactor your code, clean it up. All right, so I left my game. It sent me back to the lobby. No modal popped up. This one, we did get a modal, so your opponent has left the game. Yeah, so let's see. We did get an error, though. Fine DOM node is deprecated in strict mode. What is this stuff? Instead, add a ref directly to the element you want to reference. Well, let's fix that one. It's complaining about class. So that's my bad. This should be class name. This bug, or this, not a bug, I guess there's a warning from React. This one, I don't know if I can do anything about it because this is coming from the Bootstrap modal itself, I believe. So it's like, it's just a warning, so maybe we don't really have to care about it, but it does say that something is deprecated, which is usually means you should stop using it. So I don't know. I'm not going to worry about that warning. It's just going to pollute my console down here, and we could just keep on coding. Yeah, so, okay, what else do I want to work on? Let's see, I mean, if anyone has a suggestion as to what I could explain for them or work on, let me know. If not, I'm actually getting kind of tired, so I might sign off soon. So I'll give you all 1 minute to send me a message. Let's see what other stuff we got spinners. Oh, we could add spinners. Except for nothing. Oh yeah, so like when, yeah, that'd be cool. All right, so let's just add a spinner just because why not? So on React Bootstrap, we can add a spinner like this. And when we are waiting for an opponent to join, we could just add a spinner somewhere just because why not? Then we can come back and style it later. So if I go to my game JSX and I go to the waiting, all right, so waiting for an opponent, I could render a spinner here. And instead of saying waiting for opponent, I could just put it here and make sure that we import it. So import that from React Bootstrap /spinner. So let's see if that actually does anything cool. Well, there's a spinner, but there's no text because I guess the span is maybe a hover over span. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure why that code example even gave me a span with some text. I should probably read why. Of course it doesn't tell you why. They just have a span that has loading ... and it doesn't display anywhere. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Well, I'm going to do what I know will work, and that would be basically close off that tag and say waiting for an opponent, ... display a spinner, and see if that does the trick. Oh, this needs to be wrapped in a div. So I'll make that a span. And then this will complain unless I put it in a fragment. So I'll just do these empty tags here. Oops. Make a game. Waiting for an opponent to come join my game. I think this would be better if this is centered on the page. So instead of doing a call here and a column here, what I'm going to do is pull that out of the column. And I'm going to make a new function called render waiting, which is going to return that. I add my parentheses here. And I am going to say if we are waiting, so if the game is not started, then we want to render waiting here. And then I could just do this, render game. So I'll make another function here, render game. It's just going to basically have all this stuff. So now we don't need to check if game is started on all these different things because none of these will display unless the game is started. Let me... Alright, hold on. I think I got a syntax error somewhere. Column. This needs to return probably a fragment. There we go. So render waiting. This should be... I don't need to check if the game is started here because we already know that it started. And all this needs to be text align centered. So I think on Bootstrap you can say text center as a class name, and that will center everything. So let's find out. Of course it doesn't work. I forgot to add a column here. So this actually needs to be a column. There we go. Okay, so now this looks a little bit nicer. I think the spinner should probably be a block element, and waiting for opponent should be underneath that. So let me just go ahead and wrap it in a div to make it a block element, and put the span underneath it. I'm a checkers noob is my game name. Alright, so that looks a little bit more appealing, I think. You could probably add some padding to this stuff, so let's do that. Class name, margin, bottom. Actually, I think it's just MB. Let's see, MB of 4. I'm gonna add that to the spinner as well. Yo, why is my editor like adding? Let me go back to, is anyone chatting? Let's see. Everyone loves spinners. Yep, they sure do. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. And if I join, spinner goes away. We've got an empty bracket here, which does not look nice. I don't even know where that's coming from. That's coming from here. I don't need... What is this? Why is this even working? I don't think we need that. I don't think we need the fragment either. Try it again. piece color is black, waiting for opponent. Okay, waiting for opponent needs to go because we just started. So what's going on here? Oh, wait, no, it doesn't need to go. Yeah, this is just bad design. I don't know what we could do here to make this look better. Like, I want to inform the user that, hey, it's not your turn yet. We're waiting for your opponent to play. And I don't know what that could be. Maybe that could be like a full screen, like, grayed out spinner. But you still want to be able to use their chat, right? So it's also good to know what your piece is. Your piece color is black. I'll think of some way to make this styled better, but I think for tonight, I've been streaming for a while, so I think I'm actually gonna head off of this. But if you have any suggestions as to what I could add, what I could change, what I could redesign, what I could restyle, leave a comment. Yeah, and then also give me a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And thank you all so much for watching. This is pretty fun. Been working on this, trying to like learn more about React and WebSockets and just various stuff in React. So a lot of this code is kind of ugly, needs to be fixed up, needs to be refactored. But yeah, all right, signing off. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you all another day if I decide to stream again soon.